This session covers foster youth data in CALPADS. The agenda for the session begins with a summary about why foster students are reported in CALPADS, how those data are used, how the changes for the 2014-15 school year clarified which foster youth are reported and categorized under the local control funding formula, how foster youth are identified through a weekly matching process, which reports are available related to foster students, recommendations for local coordination, and some best practices for using foster data and ensuring information is kept confidential. We will start with why foster youth were specifically included in the local control funding formula. Foster youth are children for whom the state has intervened due to abuse or neglect. Many foster youth experience frequent school changes, multiple placements, and physical and emotional trauma, which negatively impact academic student performance. Foster youth are less successful on multiple academic measures compared to students in other disadvantaged groups, such as English learners, socioeconomically disadvantaged students, and students with disabilities. In 2013, the Local Control Funding Formula, or LCFF, was enacted, replacing the previous K-12 finance system. One of the key elements of the funding formula is the targeting of certain disadvantaged student populations in the calculation of funding to local educational agencies. The LCFF includes supplemental and concentration grants for targeted disadvantaged students, including low-income students, those classified as English learners, and foster youth. In addition to providing supplemental funding for these disadvantaged student groups, lawmakers required LEAs to adopt local control and accountability plans, or LCAPs, which include goals for each subgroup and actions that will be taken to meet those goals. Furthermore, lawmakers added foster youth as a subgroup under the Academic Performance Index, or API. Foster youth face unique challenges among other disadvantaged youth. As LEAs develop their LCAPs, they need to develop goals and actions to address the specific education needs of foster youth. Foster students can transfer schools frequently and often miss school due to court hearings, meeting with social workers and attorneys, and court-ordered therapy. LEAs need to work closely with county child welfare, county offices of education, and others to provide well-coordinated services. Let's look at how CALPADS foster data are used. CALPADS demographic data are matched each week with data from the California Department of Social Services, or CDSS, Child Welfare System Case Management System, to identify foster youth. Foster data in CALPADS are used for many purposes: to identify foster students on an ongoing basis throughout the year to ensure they receive appropriate educational supports and services as outlined in their local control and accountability plans; to determine a count of foster youth enrolled on Census Day, to include in the unduplicated pupil count, or UPC, used to calculate the local control funding formula's supplemental and concentration grants; and to determine which students should be included in the foster subgroup for the Academic Performance Index, or API. Only continuously enrolled students are included for API purposes. To be continuously enrolled, a student must be enrolled on Census Day through the first day of testing without an enrollment gap of more than 30 consecutive calendar days. The weekly foster reports in CALPADS represent a new type of CALPADS functionality. Similar to the direct certification functionality, the foster reports identify for LEAs the foster students enrolled in their schools. The reports include information from the CWS CMS that will assist counties, districts, and schools to coordinate with their social services counterparts to more effectively provide needed services to foster youth. The foster reports are strictly for local use. CALPADS, however, does leverage the foster data maintained in these reports to determine the unduplicated pupil count for the LCFF grant calculations and to identify the foster subgroup for the Academic Performance Index. The intent of the local control funding formula is for LEAs to serve all students identified as foster youth at any time during the school year. Summary data provided in the report should help LEAs in the development of local control and accountability plan goals and activities. LEAs can project what services and resources will be needed to serve all foster students at county office, district, and school levels. The objective of the statute is that LEAs serve all foster students, not just those in the local control funding formula funding and accountability calculations. The definition of which foster youth are included under the LCFF has been clarified. As part of its actions on the 2014 budget, the legislature clarified the definition of foster youth under the local controlled funding formula as all children or youth who are the subject of a petition filed under the Welfare and Institutions Code, WIC Section 300, meaning a court has taken jurisdiction over a child and declared the child to be a dependent of the court due to the presence or risk of abuse or neglect, regardless of whether they are living at home or are placed outside of the home. Children or youth who are the subject of a petition filed under the WIC Section 602, meaning a court has taken jurisdiction over a child due to the child's violation of certain criminal laws and has been ordered by a court to be removed from a home pursuant to WIC Section 727 and placed in foster care, and a youth between the ages of 18 and 21 enrolled in high school who is a non-minor dependent under the placement responsibility of child welfare, probation, or a tribal organization and is participating in a transitional living case plan. CALPADS makes a distinction between foster youth in foster placement and those in family maintenance for two reasons. Foster youth who are in placement are automatically eligible for free meals under the National School Lunch Program. And it is helpful to know whether a foster student is living in a foster placement or living at home receiving family maintenance services. Students who are not considered foster youth under the LCFF are a child or youth who is in a voluntary placement, a child or youth who is living with relatives or friends and who is not a dependent of the court, or a child or youth who is a ward of the juvenile court pursuant to a petition filed under the Welfare and Institutions Code Section 602, who is either living at home or has been ordered to be placed in a corrective or rehabilitative facility, but has not been ordered to be removed from his or her home into a foster care placement. This table summarizes which foster students fall into which categories for the purposes of funding and targeted services under LCFF. The overall goal of child social services is the reunification of children and youth with their families. Foster children and youth may go through a continuum of services or service component types, ranging from pre-placement family maintenance to out-of-home placement to family reunification or permanent placement. The LCFF definition of foster youth includes children and youth receiving services along this continuum, from the opening of the court case to its close. The table below describes the major service component types. It will be useful for educational staff working with foster children and youth to understand where in the process a child or youth is and what services he or she is receiving from the county social services or probation departments. The data provided in CALPADS will indicate whether a child or youth is in an out-of-home placement or in family maintenance. Pre-placement. A child or youth is living at home receiving family maintenance services aimed at preventing the removal of the child. Family reunification. A child or youth is in an out-of-home placement receiving services aimed at reuniting the family. Post-placement. A child or youth is in the process of being permanently reunited with his or her family following an out-of-home placement and is back living at home while the family receives services aimed at keeping the child in the home. Permanent placement. A child or youth is in an out-of-home placement permanently and services to the family have been terminated. Previously, this was referred to as long-term foster care. Supported transition is a non-minor dependent age 18 to 21 participating in a transitional independent living case plan. For more information, refer to the Data Guide 3.13 and the LCFF Frequently Asked Questions. Foster youth are now identified through a weekly automated match. Where does the data come from? The California Department of Social Services maintains a statewide data system, the Child Welfare System Case Management System, or CWS-CMS, which is the authoritative source for all foster youth in California. The County Welfare Department social workers update the CWS CMS daily as new foster cases are established or changes occur to existing cases. Each week, the Department of Social Services provides the Department of Education with a file of current foster youth based on the LCFF definition. CALPADS matches the records with students enrolled in CALPADS, and through this match identifies which students are currently in the foster student and meet the LCFF definition of foster youth. The weekly process matches foster data maintained by county welfare departments and the Department of Social Services in the CWS CMS with CALPADS enrollment data. CALPADS matches the CDSS data using first, middle, and last name, birth date, and overlapping district school enrollment and placement address matched to CALPADS address zip codes. The Department of Education and the Department of Social Services will continue to refine this process with the goal of achieving a match rate of at least 90% and as close to 100% as possible. The 10-digit foster client ID and the 19-digit case ID for foster youth who are not matched are maintained in CALPADS. If LEAs identify a foster student through a local matching process using data from their county welfare department who has not been identified in CALPADS as a foster student, LEAs will be able to look up that foster youth using the client or case ID in CALPADS. If the client or case ID is found in CALPADS, the LEA will be able to match the student, and the student will then be included in CALPADS foster reports. There are no foster data elements that LEAs submit in a file to CALPADS. Data on individual foster youth will only be available while students meet the definition under LCFF. That is, they have an open court case in the CWS CMS. No longitudinal data will be maintained. The only data related to foster youth to be certified will be the 1.17 report, which will include matched students enrolled on fall census day. Certified data will be retained. The results of the match are provided to LEAs in reports so that LEAs can provide services and supports to students currently identified as foster youth. The CALPADS matching process uses limited student demographic and enrollment data in CALPADS and is currently able to achieve a very high match rate. The CDE will continue to work with the CDSS to improve data quality, which will further improve the match rate, with the goal that LEAs rely solely on the state match. LEAs should focus efforts on building systems for local data sharing. In the meantime, LEAs may opt to continue local matching efforts with their county welfare departments. LEAs may serve foster students identified through a local match as outlined in their LCAPs. Data is not required to be reported in CALPADS to use. LEAs may also identify students who they believe are LCFF foster, but were not identified in the statewide match due to issues of timing, data quality, or definition. To address issues of non-matches due to timing and data quality, beginning in January 2015, LEAs will be able to look up foster youth in CALPADS using the client ID or case ID. If either ID is found in CALPADS, the LEA will be able to match the student, who will then be included in subsequent foster reports. Both matched and unmatched client IDs and case IDs received from the CDSS will be maintained in CALPADS. Because the CDSS is the authoritative source for who is a foster youth, LEAs cannot simply submit a program record to CALPADS indicating that a given student is a foster youth. The foster lookup functionality is the only way for LEAs to identify a student as foster. LEAs cannot submit a foster program record to CALPADS. Next, we will review the reports related to foster youth. The 1.17 report, Free Reduced Price Meals English Learner Foster Youth Count, provides duplicated counts of students qualified by multiple criteria under the local control funding formula and unduplicated counts by school where a student is counted only one time per school. Both primary and short-term enrollments are included in the report. The certified counts on the 1.17 snapshot report are used in determining supplemental and concentration grants under LCFF. Foster students identified in the statewide match and those matched manually by LEAs are included. The foster youth counts on the 1.17 report are broken into two types, foster placement and foster maintenance. The 1.17 snapshot report will include a foster student in the count if the student was enrolled on or before Fall Census Day. In November 2014, the United States Department of Agriculture, which administers the National School Lunch Program, clarified that all foster youth, as defined by LCFF, are eligible to receive free meals under the NSLP. Users must have the free and reduced role in order to view or run this report. The foster counts in this report may continue to change based on any updates from the weekly upload of foster data. Once the LEA certifies the 1.117 snapshot report, these counts are frozen. The 1.18 report provides student-level detail for students included in the 1.117 report. For more detailed information on the 1.17 and 1.18 reports, view the CALPADS LCFF Report 1.17, Free Reduced Price Meal Eligible English Learner Foster Youth Count, Self-Paced Training Module. The reports will be updated weekly and will include information from the CWS CMS to help schools and LEAs coordinate services for foster students. Examples are the name and contact information for a foster student's social worker, or if parental rights are limited, the name and contact information for the student's court-appointed educational representative. LEAs should review the reports weekly to identify any new foster students enrolled in their schools and districts. These reports will only show current foster students. If a student is no longer a foster student, their name will drop off of the reports. To help LEAs identify the students who are no longer foster, a new report, available in January 2015, will provide all former foster students during the academic year. These reports will be purged at the end of the academic year. CALPADS will provide information to the county offices of education and school districts through the following reports. LEAs will have access to the 5.6 foster youth enrolled count and the 5.7 foster youth enrolled student list. County offices will have the same reports with additional information, including the county of jurisdiction and the county of enrollment. The 5.6 foster youth enrolled count reports foster youth either in foster placement or foster family maintenance for students identified in the statewide matching process or with the local match once available. To access all weekly foster youth reports, users must have the authorizing LEA or county and foster youth security roles. The 5.7 foster youth enrolled student list provides detail about the K-12 students who are currently identified as being in foster care, either in foster placement or foster family maintenance. The report is designed to show only students that are currently foster youth. The county office reports provide aggregate counts by district and school with the following views: foster students enrolled in my county and placed by my county, foster students enrolled in my county and placed by another county, and foster students enrolled in another county and placed by my county. County offices will be able to see student-level detail. A version of the 5.6 report was created specifically for county offices of education. As mentioned on the previous slide, the county who has jurisdiction over a foster youth may not be the same county in which the foster youth is placed or attends school. Users can select from the following filters to further narrow the report results. The CA 5.6 report summarizes foster students by the county of jurisdiction and county of enrollment. Students are then reported out by school, grade, and whether they are in foster placement or foster family maintenance. Counts are grouped by foster students enrolled in my county and placed by my county, foster students enrolled in my county, placed by another county, and foster students enrolled in another county, placed by my county. The CA 5.7 Foster Youth Enrolled Student List provides the same detailed information as the LEA Student Level Report 5.7. Unlike other CALPADS reports, county offices of education can access student-level data of students not enrolled in a COE school. The report provides the county of jurisdiction and county of enrollment for each student. 2 additional reports are in development and will be available after the first of the year. The 5.8 former foster youth enrolled count reports the total and an unduplicated count of K-12 students who were formerly foster youth by school and grade level. Students are considered former foster students when they have been identified as foster at some point during the current academic year but are no longer foster. The report has two separate sections. The first section is a summary by grade for the sum of all selected schools, and the second section provides a summary by grade for each of the selected schools. The second report, also due in January, is the 5.9 Former Foster Youth Student List, which provides detailed information on K-12 students who were formerly foster in the current academic year. All data will be purged at the end of the school year. Next, we will take a look at issues to consider when developing and implementing goals and actions unique to the specific education needs of foster youth and how to coordinate services and support. The CDE, in partnership with county foster youth service programs and other stakeholders, is developing a bank of resources, tools, and best practices for use in school districts. These resources should be available in the spring of 2015. Providing effective services and support for foster students will require coordination among multiple agencies and organizations, including county offices of education, districts, schools, county welfare and probation agencies, and other professionals working with foster youth. Form multidisciplinary teams to work closely in providing well-coordinated services and support systems to foster students. Consider how teams will effectively communicate and share confidential data among those serving identified students. CALPADS will provide LEAs with the name of their foster students through the weekly reports. Determine what additional information will be needed to track students and the delivery of services and supports. Since information about foster students and those providing services to them may reside in multiple systems that are not connected, LEAs should explore ways to most effectively share data. LEAs may want to consider integrating case management systems that support the delivery of educational services for foster students and facilitate sharing of data and information with social welfare and probation agencies. Case management data systems can facilitate the real-time sharing of day-to-day data on foster students, including school attendance, class schedules, course grades, and suspensions and expulsions. LEAs should evaluate ways to most effectively share data and information with other agencies to benefit the students in foster care. Agencies may be able to leverage resources that might not be available through education systems. LEAs may want to collaborate with agencies providing services to foster youth, including county child welfare, juvenile probation, and juvenile courts, as well as county office foster youth coordinators in building effective support systems. Locally, LEAs will need to establish processes for maintaining foster data. Some issues to consider. Does the student information system have the capacity to house the data? Will a separate system need to be developed? How will information be shared outside of the organization? What additional information is needed? What measures will be used to evaluate efficacy? Determine what staff will have access to foster data and what safeguards need to be implemented to protect that information. Determine how those staff will receive foster information and develop policies for the appropriate use of foster information. Also, determine what training staff should receive. County offices, districts, and schools will need to establish business processes for updating and maintaining data provided in the weekly CALPADS reports. Summary data should inform local control and accountability plan goals and activities, helping to determine the need for services and resource allocation at the COE, district, and school levels. Individual level data may be part of the data sharing required to coordinate services for individual foster students. LEAs will need to keep foster data current locally, updating weekly as new students are identified as foster and others may drop off as their cases close. Changes in status, such as going from family maintenance services to an out-of-home placement, where the student is placed, and updates to critical contact information like social worker name and phone or educational representative name and phone. In determining who has access to foster data, The challenge is balancing the need for district and school site staff to know which students are foster youth so they can provide appropriate services, supports, and instruction, with the need to keep this highly sensitive information confidential. In providing the most appropriate and effective supports to foster students, LEAs will need to determine who within their organization should know whether a student is in foster care. The district and school site staff who are best able to provide foster students the services and supports and instruction they need, which may include district foster coordinators, AB 490 foster youth liaisons, site administrators, counselors, teachers, and registrars. LEAs may choose to provide direct access to foster data in CALPADS. Any staff accessing reports must have the foster role. These staff will not have access to other data unless provided additional roles. Consider if access to other data, such as prior enrollments and assessment information, may be appropriate to best serve the individual students. LEAs may also choose to download CALPADS data and leverage information from their student information systems, such as attendance, courses and grades, and disciplinary information. LEAs may also opt to use an existing system that shares data with local social welfare agencies. LEAs might begin by discussing the use of an existing case management system with their County Office of Education. The COEs are generally familiar with existing systems. Later in December, a listing of existing systems will be available in a toolkit produced by Foster Ed, an initiative of the National Center for Youth Law that collaborates with state and local agencies to improve the educational outcomes of students in foster care. What is the appropriate use of this information? When developing policies regarding access to foster youth data, the guiding criteria should be that information is used to ensure that the student receives appropriate services, supports, and instruction. Develop policies and processes for determining what circumstances district or school site staff should be allowed to share information with other district or school site staff, other students, or non-district employees. Under what circumstances should staff acknowledge that they know he or she is in foster care? Whether teachers should always be informed as to which students are in foster care, and if processes should be different for students in out-of-home placement versus at home receiving family maintenance service. LEAs don't need to reinvent the wheel. Policies have been developed by local programs who have invested in or participated in data sharing systems. Each set of policies, however, is unique to their local jurisdiction, so it is important for LEAs to vet and adopt their own policies unique to them. Determine what training staff may need, which may include an overview of the child welfare system. What is it like for a student to be in foster care? The common educational challenges facing foster youth, the most effective strategies, supports, and services likely to help foster youth succeed in school, the most effective interagency-based infrastructure to facilitate the delivery of school-based supports for foster youth, information and strategies related to trauma-informed care and instruction, and training on the LEA's policies with respect to obtaining, using, and sharing foster youth directory information. The California State Legislature has long recognized the unique challenges foster youth face due to abuse, neglect, and instability, and that they have significantly worse educational outcomes than other at-risk student subgroups. To ensure that LEAs know which students are foster youth, the local control funding formula required the Department of Education to work with the Department of Social Services to provide this information to LEAs on a weekly basis. LEAs are to serve these youth based on their local control and accountability plan actions and goals designed to improve their academic outcomes. LEAs will receive additional funding to support their LCAPs based on an unduplicated count of disadvantaged students, which includes foster youth enrolled on Census Day. Foster youth will be identified through a weekly match of data from the Department of Social Services Child Welfare System Case Management System with CALPADS data. Summary and detailed ODS reports have been developed for LEAs and county offices of education. LEAs will need to access reports in CALPADS that identify students who are foster youth currently enrolled in their schools. 2 new reports are now available, a summary and detailed report. The detailed report provides additional child welfare information that will assist LEAs to meet the needs of their foster students. County offices of education will have access to information on all foster students enrolled in their county and foster students they are responsible for, but who are attending school in another county. Additional reports of students who are no longer foster youth and a user interface to manually match students not automatically identified in the weekly process will be available in January 2015. CALPADS and data management staff should work collaboratively with program staff to develop policies and processes to effectively and efficiently utilize and share data to benefit foster students. Collaboration with other agencies is key. Some of the factors to consider when developing policies and building comprehensive systems of support for foster youth are which agencies and professionals should be involved, how data will be maintained, managed, and shared while maintaining confidentiality, and how staff will be trained. Some resources that may help in providing more detail about foster youth under the local control funding formula and what data are maintained in CALPADS are the local control funding formula, frequently asked questions, and the CALPADS data guide. Some links to resources for serving foster youth are the Foster Youth Services programs in the Department of Education, which provides support to students ensuring that health and school records are obtained to establish appropriate placement, coordinating and providing instruction, counseling, tutoring, mentoring, vocational training, emancipation services, and training for independent living, and other related services. Foster Ed is an initiative of the National Center for Youth Law that collaborates with state and local agencies to improve the educational outcomes of students in foster care. The California Foster Youth Education Task Force was created in 2004 to address issues related to foster youth education. Subject matter experts representing more than 35 organizations and agencies, together with grassroots stakeholders, work together on the task force to improve educational outcomes for students in foster care. And Foster Ed Connect is a site for all people helping children and youth in California's foster care system succeed in school. You will need to register to use the resources, but the account is free.